Hey VC, what's up? It's me, yours truly. I am back to post a quick video here. This is actually going to be a video response to John K. Techhead, his 100 subs video. I actually stumbled across Robert Z's response to his video earlier, which led me to his channel and his video. And I love Robert Z's response. He got into some really good, deep stuff, and I chatted a little bit with Robert earlier and wanted to jump on board and do a response to congratulate on your 100 subs and actually become a new sub to you. So this should be fun. This is also going to kind of be a little bit of a response to LJ's last video about like how he processed or takes in new vinyl. It's not really a thread, but LJ kind of shared that and said, you know, if you want to share what you do, you know, just kind of make a video response. So I'm going to kind of dedicate this to LJ because it's kind of on the same topic. Like I said, Robert Z made a really good video I watched earlier, so I'm also going to incorporate some of the questions that he had and kind of the direction he went inside of my video here as well. So a lot of different things kind of going on from a number of cool people in the VC, but again, this is for John K. Glad to be one of your new subs and want to jump on board. As John was doing the video, just a shit show in the background. Got the flaming lips. And this is basically when they did that record store day kind of cover, if you will, of Dark Side of the Moon. It's a really cool kind of aqua greenish type clear vinyl. I'll show it to you here in a minute. But let me just kind of jump in because John had a number of questions. Actually, it's kind of ideas, because as he was talking, he was just kind of, you know, he was throwing out questions here and there of things to think about and just kind of clarify. So he left it really kind of nice and open to share a lot of different things, which is cool. So here are a few notes as far as questions that I took from his video. So I'm going to just kind of ramble here, so bear with me. Let's see. So John asked, like what are some of your listening habits like? You know, do you, like, how do you listen to your vinyl? Do you mix as far as rotation, new stuff you get as well as old vinyl you have, and just kind of all of that stuff, just listening habits. What I can basically say about that is there's not a heck of a lot of rhyme or reason to any of my listening habits, and I do not set any type of rules on myself for listening habits. So I'm not the kind of person that says you have to listen to, you put an album on, you have to listen to it from front to back all the way through. I'll never say that in a million years. If I start playing an album, I listen to side one, I have to listen to side two before I go to a different album. No. Do I have to listen to new stuff before I listen to old stuff or what? No. There's no rhyme or reason to it whatsoever. Whatever I feel, that's what I go with. So if I get new records in, you know, if it's a record I know very well, maybe I don't necessarily throw it right into the rotation. You know, maybe it's a record I've had a CD of for quite some time, so I've listened to it and know it well, but I finally get the vinyl. I don't feel like I have to immediately throw that into rotation and listen to it. Matter of fact, the only rule that I have about listening to records whatsoever is that any record that's officially put into my collection, which means it's cleaned, it goes into the database, and it's actually put onto the shelf. Before that happens, before it's put on the shelf, I have to listen to every song on that record. Now, sometimes that might be, there may be a record that has a few fillers in it, so maybe I don't listen to that whole song from front to back. I may go through the first one or two verses and then just be like, that song just kind of sucks, you know, whatever, or that type of thing. But regardless, there's not a record that goes on my shelf or a CD that goes into my collection, even a tape for that matter, that I have not listened to a significant, if not all, of every single part of every single song on that album. Because I don't put anything in my collection where there's not something on it where I will want to listen to it again at some point in time in my life. Outside of maybe doubles of different pressings, there's nothing I keep just for collection's sake or just to have more records or whatever the case may be. So I like something on every single vinyl I keep, CD or cassette for that matter. So that's really the only rule to any degree as far as listening habits. I spend what I want to spend when I want to spend it. Even if it's going back and forth between, like I said, I listen to side 1 or 3 songs on this album, I get an urge to go to this album, then another one, then a CD, then a cassette, then I come back to side 2 of this album I started with 2 days later. I'll do that as well. But maybe one thing that might be kind of considered a rule, this might be one of the only rules I could say, is when well, actually, it's what I was just saying before. Before I put anything on the shelf, in my collection officially, when it goes on the shelf, I have to listen to every single song. So what I do is I have these little stickers I put on the back, which I've talked about these in videos before. This is simply where I put the year of the album, the amount that I paid for it, and then on each side I go through and just kind of, basically, I put the number of the tracks that I think are the standout tracks on the album, and then I circle the number of the tracks that I think are the true, like, pieces of work on the album. Now, I don't do this because I have to come back later and go, oh, which songs were great on this album? But it's more so because I think of my collection as a library. And I like the idea and the ability for my friends or family, anyone to come in, pull a record off the shelf and go, I have no idea who this band is, what this album is, but Brandon suggests that I check out song 2 on side 1 of the first album of Yuck. He thinks that that's one of the best songs on here. So this just kind of really makes my collection a library. But again, I do not put the records on the shelves until I have listened to every side of that album. So as you can see with this Yuck, I've listened to side 1, or album 1, but I have not listened to album 2 yet. So it's still down here in my in-rotation pile. Now the same thing with that sticker, the way I can keep track of what I've done is if the date and the value is written on the sticker, that means it's been put in my database. Because again, without having the rules, maybe I start listening to an album before it's in my database. No problem. Put the stickers on there. I can start marking the tracks. But all I have to do is look at the back of that and see there's no date. There's no date of the album. There's no price. It hasn't been put in my database yet. So it's real easy to keep organized and not have to follow a rule of come into the house, put the records down, put them in the database. It's like, no, I might want to just jam to these records for the first 2 weeks and then I'll end up putting in my database. That little sticker tells me what I've done and what I haven't done. So from a, if I'm mixing new with old and how I spin and everything else, those are the only type of rules that follow. But, again, I just go with whatever I feel at the time. Let's see. One of the next, I guess, kind of questions there was, what's that? Oh, do you really listen to your stuff, all the stuff that you get? Like if you have a bigger collection, do you really listen to everything, stuff you get, and so forth? I mean, I have a decent sized collection. I don't have a massive collection in that I have about maybe 4,500 records, maybe 1,500 or so CDs, and about 1,000 or so cassettes, somewhere around there. But again, nothing has gone onto those shelves that I have not listened to. Now, I don't necessarily. So what's probably? Well, I'm trying to think of like the best way to put it. I don't feel bad. It's kind of one of the other questions too. Was do you feel guilty about not spinning or listening to your records? No more so than someone that has iTunes with 4,000 songs in their iTunes that go, I have not listened to every song on my iTunes in the past 6 months. I don't feel any different about that with my records, because my records are there for more than even just the music. There are plenty of times where I've just spent time flipping through, looking at artwork, just pulling out records and reading about the useless information that might be on the back of the records or the inserts or whatever else. So yeah, all of my records are fairly active in my collection. That might be a good way to put it, because I don't think active is always listening to them. you know, sometimes I'll get in the mode where I'm like, huh, you know, my ladies of the 90s, I haven't really dug in that section much lately. So maybe I'm listening to, I'll throw on Alanis Morissette and I'm listening to that, but then I'll go to that section and just start like digging and pulling out stuff. Like, oh yeah, I haven't thought about that. Oh yeah, I probably need to get this on a spin, put that in rotation. And I'll flip through that entire section. I may not play every record, but each one that I look at, I'm still involved and active, if you will, with that record. Because I do get such pleasure out of just flipping through my collection. So yeah, I think every record is always very active in my collection. Same thing with my cassettes. I'll go over to the cassette wall sometimes while I'm even listening to a record and just start kind of just browsing through, just pulling stuff out and just kind of, you know, appreciating the collection. Let's see, moving right along. So these questions are kind of all over the place, so I'm going to kind of ramble and go all over the place as well. Do you feel guilty about not spinning? I just kind of answered that one. How easy is it to browse through your collection? Somehow I pulled that question out of what he asked. And I think that's probably the one thing that I'm most, I guess I'm most adamant about within my collection is the way that it's set up. And those of you who know me kind of know, when it comes to putting pieces in my collection, I refuse to have any pieces that are in my collection, in my database, that are stored inside of drawers or in boxes in the other room or any of that type of stuff. Everything in my collection always has to be 100% visually available as well as physically available. That's extremely important to me with my collection, because I do get so much out of browsing in my collection that I need to have that clean, ready, almost store-ready accessibility with my collection at all times, because that's a very, very important part of how I enjoy my collection is the browsing. So it's extremely easy to browse through my collection. Now, what's most important when looking at your collection? Is it the value, the buying, the listening, just kind of all those different elements? And for me, it's kind of all of the above. And really, to answer that question precisely, you have to tell me exactly which record you're talking about. Because Robert Z touched on this really good in his video, and those of us that have known Robert for a long time knows the thing that really like gets him pumped up and gets him really excited and makes him really enjoy his collection is he likes those special pressings is the thing that he really enjoys. The Japanese pressings, those very rare promos, the MoFi pressings and all that stuff. That's like what he really, really enjoys, and he talks about that in his response to this video. And for me, it's kind of that and a combination of a number of other things too. I'm nowhere near on the same level as Robert when it comes to pressings and so forth. Just with each individual album, it totally varies for me. So again, trying to stay on topic here. What's most important? Value, buying, listening. It really is all of the above. Any record I bring into my collection, I don't care if it's a dollar bin record or if it's a record that, normally runs $200, whatever the case may be. It has to be a record that I can put on my turntable and enjoy listening to. So for example, I should have pulled these out beforehand. Next, let me do it here really quick, because I think this is kind of important to make that point. Let's see here. So I go to my country section. Give me just 1 second, guys. I'm going to pull out a couple things here. Okay, here we go. Alright. And then let me grab one more thing here, because I'm going to make this point really quick. Probably should have did this beforehand, but I apologize. Okay, so first thing, when it comes to pressings, thinking about what type of pressing to buy, the value of the album, all that type of stuff. There's certain albums where I just get urges to buy a certain pressing. I always think of Shadows of Night's Gloria is a perfect example. I wanted that album for quite some time. There were, brand new, perfect condition pressings that you could get for $12.99, but for whatever reason, I had to have one of the original Dunwich 666 pressings, and I don't know why. One typically run 50, 60, 70 bucks. The other was 12 bucks. I mean, I got mine a lot cheaper than that, but still, just for whatever reason, and no explanation, I just wanted that pressing and was not willing to settle for the reissue. And sometimes it's vice versa. So when it comes to value of the pressing and that type of thing, totally depends on the individual album, but I don't bring anything into my collection strictly for the goal of making the value of my collection more. Whatever my collection is valued, it's just a default of the different things that I want to buy. In terms of pressings, or I should say condition, because I know that was one thing that Robert touched on quite a bit in his video. The condition that I'm willing to take an album in, again, depends on the album itself and what I can actually enjoy listening to. A crackle here or a pop there, or whatever the case may be, quite frankly, I don't care about that. I'm not one that grabs a record and goes, oh, there's I see something right there. It's like, okay, quite frankly, if I'm paying a fair price for whatever level of record it is, can I have that record with the album artwork and I enjoy it and feel good about having it? When I put it on and listen to it, can I enjoy listening to the record? Or is it something going on with that record that's making me not enjoy it, that's distracting me, that's taking something away from the music? That's all I care about. Now, whatever level of condition that is can vary from album to album. And that's what I was kind of doing here is, when I originally picked up Willie Nelson, and this is The Red-Headed Stranger, this is an album that I bought where I knew just from the beginning I have to find something that is in immaculate condition. That's exactly what I did on this very, very nice Columbia pressing. But one of the reasons I knew that was because I knew that this is a very, very quiet album. And in order to really enjoy it and to, get what you want to get when you're listening to an album like this, you're going to have a very clean and perfect type of pressing. So that's what I really, really focused on and looked for when I bought this one. And the great thing about it is I got it for only $1, which was freaking awesome. But great, fabulous pressing there. Now, at the same token, if you compare it to this album, which is Testament's Practice What You Preach, one of my favorite thrash metal albums, you look at this one, okay condition, but does it have kind of some hairline things going on in there? Really nice gloss and everything else? Yes. But when I listened to this album, when I bought it, I looked at it and thought, it's not that bad. Cover's in really, really good shape. And when I put it on, did you hear a couple of crackles and pops in the dead wax? But when this thrash metal kicks in, nothing is taken away from the album itself. So the condition that's acceptable for this album for me would totally not be acceptable for that album. And that's how I judge what condition of an album I'm willing to accept. I don't get hung up on everything has to be like this. That's just not me. I put it on in a store, I want to hear it. If it sounds good and I can listen to this album, okay, that works for me. Now, of course, I look at the covers and everything to see, and one thing that has rips and creases everywhere and all that kind of stuff, or spines busting at the seams or anything, so clearly want to pay attention to that. But that's kind of how, when it comes to what's important with the buying aspect of vinyl, that's the thing that I pay attention to there. And quite frankly, this was something good I think that Robert Z brought up, and I told him I was going to kind of piggyback on something that he said in his videos, because like one of the examples that he used, because again, Robert has probably, I'd probably say arguably one of the most immaculate collections of anyone in the VC. because he really cares about that, and that's the thing that makes him happy about his collection. And he used kind of the example of if there's someone that collects old rare coins and has all of these mint condition coins from way back when, and then they come over and find like some pennies in your couch, that they wouldn't be very excited about it because it's pretty clear. And I agree with that. And there are some pieces in my collection that I kind of feel that way about, where I really got locked in on pressings, condition, and all of that, because I want some of those immaculate pennies that are rare, so to speak, or coins that are rare. On the flip side, there's also that other aspect of me as a collector, which is like kind of maybe using Robert's example, some things is kind of just the opposite, where that old rusty broken knife that was the one that was used to kill King George back in the whatever century, that becomes the most desirable piece, and not necessarily the brand new most immaculate knife that you could have. And so part of my collection is that way as well, because again, I'm trying to think of examples here. What might be good examples? Like my Slayer collection, good example. I've been very, very picky about the records that I brought into my Slayer collection. But on the flip side, my Pat Benatar collection, I almost refuse to have a brand new 180-gram pressing of any Pat Benatar album. I cannot give you any reason why. It's just those albums, that artist, there's a feel that I get of what I want to have when I have those artists. And maybe part of it is nostalgia, maybe part of it is, I don't know, but that's just kind of the way I am. So yeah, I think the buying aspect is important to me, the collection aspect is important to me, and the listening aspect is important to me. And I know most people like to say when they have their vinyl collections that listening is the most important thing. It's all about the music, all about the music. I understand where you're coming from, and of course music is very important to me. But at the same time, if it was only about the music and the music was the most important thing, I wouldn't need all of this. A simple 60 gig iPod could have this amount of music in it. So there are some buying and collecting elements that are equally as important, or very, very important, right up there with listening. So let me kind of move on. Again, this is one of those ramble type of videos. I can kind of go on forever. Let's see. So next one. Let's see. Are you collecting album for value, music? I could kind of answer that one. And how do you organize your time around listening? Sorry, let me start this over. So again, the question was kind of like, if you have all this music, how do you don't have 24 hours a day to sit and listen to music all the time, how do you organize your time? Again, I don't think I do organize my time. I wing it, Maybe I'm doing something in the morning and I catch 3 songs, I leave, come back, turn the turntable back on, put the needle back where I left off. Okay, I didn't get a chance to finish that album. I sit it down in my little rotation stack over here, pull out another CD. So yeah, I really don't organize time at all. I just go with what comes. There are a lot of times where I get the urge of like someone may say, I want to go out tonight, that type of thing. I'll say, I want to spend the night. It's like, okay, I'm going to go home, I'm going to, get cleaned up, get something to eat, and then I'm just going to spin records, listen to music, and just dwell in my music room tonight. I'll do stuff like that. But again, there's no quota to how many records or, any of that type of stuff. So that's, kind of in a nutshell, I guess, most of the questions that were asked. And the last thing, which is kind of the thing that touched base with LJ's thread, and he also asked, how do you process your records when you come in? What's kind of the pattern of records coming in and that type of thing? So I think the easiest way that'll keep this video a lot shorter too is just to kind of show you here really quick, because it's actually fairly simple. this over here, this table is everything. I call this my processing station, because this is everything that is not officially in my collection in any way, shape, or form. This is stuff that needs to be cleaned, listened to, put in the database and everything else, and then once that happens, it can go into the collections here and there. Now this little table over here, with the exception of that box, that's just where I keep my signed CDs, so exclude that. But this over here is stuff that I've bought, or that I've recently gotten, whatever the case may be, that I put into the database, but just need to kind of listen to. Even though most of this or some of this I already have, but you can see stuff like some Sepultura CDs I recently got. Almost have a complete collection here now too with those. This Rick Braun I just got, Testament, Zayo, Motley Crue, whatever, and then these CDs here, a bunch of different things. But all of this stuff has been put into the database, and it's just a matter of listening to what I want to listen to, then putting it away. This over here is stuff I've just picked up and has not been put into the database, has not been cleaned, has not been listened to or anything. And so all of this stays on this table in this area until I start listening or going through that process. So simply put, that's where all my new stuff comes. It's just kind of right in here. CDs and so forth. So sometimes when you ask about my listening habits earlier, what I'll do too is I'm like, I want to throw some music on, but don't really have a preference. I'll just come over here and grab something, throw it on, start listening to it. While I'm listening to it, I'll put it in the database, whatever the case may be, and then just kind of go from there. So I don't even make it necessarily an urgent thing to come over here and start going through this and processing things and getting everything. It's like, no, it's just like anything else. I pull, listen, and it's kind of fun too when you don't really have something particular that you want to hear, just to be able to go grab something new and just give it a listen. I mean, it's kind of nice. So outside of that, the only other type of in rotation thing I might have is this little box right over here, and that's about it. I pull stuff off the shelf sometimes and just like, okay, I'm flipping, see this, want to give it a listen, I'll pull it out and just put it in this box right here. And it can be any type of random stuff, everything from, I say Sepultura right into Winwood, right into Johnny Cash. And if I end up pulling out a few more things, I'll just kind of sit it right off here to the side or somewhere. But that's about as big as my in rotation stack ever stays, because for the most part, when I pull things off my shelf, I want to pull them off and listen to them as I'm pulling them off. So, oh yeah, that's that aqua green I was telling you about on that vinyl there. So anyway, so wow, that's a freaking long video. Now I know why Robert was saying it was going to take so long. There's a ton more I could talk about there too, but I hope that kind of touches on some of the different aspects about all the stuff that you were talking about, John. And again, glad I stumbled across your video. I thank Robert for getting me over there. Really appreciate that. And as always, VC, let me know what you think, and we will talk to you soon. All right, take care, guys.